Get started with the assignment. And one of the things that I mentioned in the description of the assignment is that there will be a single point of access to the data. Right? That we're going to have a admin user service client who is going to be the sole owner of the data. Right? It's going to provide us with an API to be able to fetch the data, to create new data, to delete data, to update the data that's already there, or find data in any number of criteria, right? Either retrieving all of them, or retrieving by ID, or by some other criteria. Okay. Now, normally these service client would have a server mirror to this, right? Mirror image that would run on the server, would connect to a database, right, and provide the actual data from a persistent storage. We don't have that yet. We don't have the server. We don't have the web service. We don't have the data storage. So for now, it's just going to be providing some initial static data as a JSON file, right? And that's what it's going to be returning to us, right? So for instance, here's our class that we're going to be using to instantiate our service provider, and so, for instance, our find all users, the only thing it's going to do is just going to return this array, this static array of users for now, right? And then in the next assignment, we're going to replace this with an actual call to a server, right? That's going to return exactly the same data, but from a server backed by some database, which we'll implement a little later. So let's get started. Let's implement here on web app. We'll create a directory where we can implement our service. So services. So under services, there will be one service per data store that we want to access, right? So if we want to retrieve courses, create courses, delete courses, update courses, there'll be a courses service, right, that will provide the API to interact with courses. Yes? If we want to interact with users, there'll be a user service. Right? So there'll be a service per data storage that we want to manipulate. So in this particular case, we're going to implement now a JavaScript. This will be a user .service.client.js. Okay, so so this is the data store, the role of this file, where is this executing on the client? Okay. All right. So we have here the service. We're going to implement it as a plain old JavaScript class. Okay, there it is. So we don't really need a URL for now because we don't have a server. And it's declaring the following functions which are not implemented. And adding them as member of this instance. Right? When this instantiates, we're going to be using this as a constructor. We're going to say new, and this function, a function. When you call new on it, right, it's interpreted as a constructor. And what it does is that it creates an instance, and then inside of that constructor, you can add any variables you want or any functions as part of the current instance. So this is a reference to the current instance. Now the keyword this behaves kind of funny in JavaScript. It doesn't always mean what you think. Unlike Java, this is always the instance of the current instance that you're executing in, right? Not in JavaScript. JavaScript, the keyword this has different meanings depending what context you're in, right? Which is a little bit annoying. So often what folks might do, so that there is no ambiguity what the original intent of this keyword, they assign it to another variable, like self. That's a very common keyword or a variable name, so that all throughout the scope of this constructor, you're always going to have access to the original meaning of this keyword, right? By using self. because self points to the original instance that was created. This changes, the keyword this changes depending on the context. If you call a function, for instance, from here, the keyword this will now be bound to that function that was invoked, as opposed to the original instance of that you instantiated. Okay? Right? So this is a very common way to get around that. You assign it to a local variable, so that self now references the original instance. Right? All right. So we have that. We now have to implement all these things. Now let's implement the very first one, find all users. So find all users right now, so it will be function find all users. Typically, we would go out to a server. We would make an AJAX RESTful call to some web service. We don't know how to do that just yet. Right? The server would respond with JSON data, right, in an asynchronous fashion. Right? Once we have the data, we would then send it back to whoever wanted it. Okay? But we don't have that yet. And we would typically do it through a callback. Right? And we'll see what a callback is in a little later. Since we don't have a server, we're just going to return some data, right? Either some static array here of some users. So we'll create a couple of users here. Username Alice. Username Bob. And username Charlie. Okay? Ideally, we would store this in a separate JSON file. We'll do that a little later. All right, so we have our first function. None of the others exist, so I'm just going to put a placeholder for them. So this will be function create user. I'm just going to leave it empty for now, and all of these. So we'll have a function find user by ID. This is a very common set of functions that you would typically implement for any CRUD operation, create, read, update, and delete functions that you want to operate on any data set. There. Okay, so right now we just have find all users. Everybody good? All right, now that we have that, we can now go and start implementing the component and the HTML that will go along with that, so we can render this. So let's do that. Let's have in a separate directory admin. Declare our user admin HTML template. So this will be our user admin. This is a template on the client, and it's HTML. Now we had given you a start, so I'm going to start with that. Where is it? The templates. This is the beginnings of a template, so let me just copy that. It already has convenient references to Bootstrap, to jQuery, and also the client, the service client. So I'm just going to replace all this, and let's see what we have here so far. We have Bootstrap. We have Font Awesome. We have any style sheet that we might have locally. We don't have this, so let's create that. Also, here a file sibling to this. There we go. So right now it'll be empty. There's nothing in it just yet. What else do we want here? Let's see. Services is referencing. It's going up one and then down to services and down to user.service.client.js. So it looks like it's there. Yeah, it's there. It's that file. And plus we'll need the admin component, right? So let's put it here. For now, we'll have here an h1 user admin. Okay. And we don't have a user admin client, so let's create that as well as a sibling to this JavaScript. And there it is. So right now there's nothing there just yet. Okay, so we can now navigate to that file. Let's see where we have it. I think it's under, where is it? Admin, and then user admin. admin.template.client.html. Okay, we're in the right place. So we're there. It loaded the files. Let's see if it loaded all the files. We can see sources. You can see all the files that it loaded. Here's the HTML document. The component, it's empty right now. The CSS is empty. The services was loaded. So all these are loaded. We see that the browser did find everything. Right? It's always a good idea to check and see that everything has been loaded. All right, so let's see. We have that. Typically, we might want to put this inside of a div with enough padding all around. Right now, it's way too flush with the borders. So we'll put this. We'll add a class here, class container fluid, just to add a nice border around it. Okay. All right, and let's see. We might want to have a table here. I don't know if I gave you that. I think I gave you that, right? I gave you the beginnings of a table. There it is. So let's start with this here. So that's a table. Maybe we can close the head. Then we want a T-body. And we're going to close the table. If we refresh, okay, we have the beginnings of the headings for the table. Let's see, what else? What else did we give you? We probably gave you also the beginnings of the form here. Let's grab that. So let's add that as the second row of the T head. That closes the select, this closes the TD, and this closes the TR. So that's the beginning of the form that we give you to get started. And what else did we give you? Let's see, what else did we give you? Also, yeah. So at the end, the last column has has the elements, the buttons and whatnot, right? So let's add that as the last column here. Let's tab that a little bit. Okay, that assumes you have Font Awesome installed. Indeed, we have it, right? So there we go. We have that first row of the form. What else did we give you? Let's see. We gave you the beginnings of the rows for each one of the users, right? So there's a T-body. Let me grab the whole T-body. Oops. Copy. And that would go right here. So let's replace the T-body with that. There we go. Okay. And if we render that, okay, there we go. We have Ada Lovelace. Let's make this a little smaller. Okay. All right. So we're going to be using this first row here as a template, okay, that we're going to copy, and then we're going to paste, right, for every single user that we might have coming from the data source. But it's already styled, right? It has already the buttons at the end, right? It has already the layout is already done. Oftentimes, the templates that are given to you will be from folks that have styled this to make it look like some Photoshop version of this content, right? That have spent quite a few days already making it look pretty, right? Creating all the shadows, all the fonts, all the borders, and what you want to do is just make it dynamic, right? They'll probably give you lots of example data. Where some of the data might be missing, or some of the content is very long, just to see how it wraps, right? It'll show you this when it's empty, when it has a lot of content, so that you can see how it scrolls. So the folks that have designed this probably will give you lots of examples of how it looks like when it's empty, when it has lots of data, when the text is very long. We'll give you lots and lots of examples of what to make it look like. Your responsibility is to make sure that you, when you make it dynamic, you don't break the styling, right? So as much as you can, you might want to just copy and paste exactly what they have, right? So maybe cloning this entire row and then just cloning it for every instance that you add back into the DOM. All right, so let's see what else we give you. I think that's it. Right, commit, obviously, yeah. The templates, let's see. What else do we need here? So we have the service, we have the component. What else do we need? We might have a user to instantiate each one of these. All right, we also gave you the beginnings of a component. Okay, so let's grab that. It's using the iffy design pattern. Let's grab that. Oops, I think is that too much? Yeah, that's fine. Copy. So let's see. The component is here. It's empty right now. Let's paste it in there. So what's doing here is that it's declaring the variables that we're going to use to bind to the DOM. Right, very much like we did in the previous examples. Right, we're going to do a document, $, and then we're going to do hash, and then the name of the field, and bind it to the username field and the password and all of them, right? And here's a jQuery call to initialize the main. Right here's where we're going to do all the retrieval of all those variables from the DOM, right? And we're going to bind all the event handlers so that these are going to be called dynamically. Okay. Also notice that here we instantiated the admin user service client, which we declared earlier. So presumably we should be able to do something like user service dot. There they are. See that? The API is available to me right here. I can say find all users. That's one of the first things we're going to do, right? Because we have to retrieve that array. And with that array, we need to iterate over that array and then clone, right? Clone that row, right, for every single instance, and then append it to a table to the table body, right? For every single instance in that array of objects, right? So we'll do that in a minute. First of all, we'll need to grab all these things, right? And we'll probably do that in main. So let's do that in main. Oops. Create user right now. Let's remove these annoying dots here. Ellipses. Let's remove the ellipses from here. All right. So let's see. I think I even got you started with main, didn't I? Maybe not. I did. Oh no. Okay. Now this is admin user service. All right, I didn't get you started with main. All right, so let's get started with main. So one of the first things that we'll need to do is get a hold of all these elements, right, in the template. So the template is right here. Here's a template. Notice that our component here, it's inside of an iffy, right? Also notice that it's declaring an event handler to call the main function after the document has loaded. So by the time I get to the main function, I can assume that the entire document has loaded. Yes, that the table has loaded, that all these rows have loaded, the form has loaded, all these elements have loaded. Yes, they are in the DOM. I can retrieve them. All right, so let's do that. Let's grab these. This variable is just going to be $, and then hash. And then, what's the name? Username field. There we go. We grab it, right? And then we would need to do for all of them. Also notice the naming convention that I'm following. All variables that I know are bound to some DOM element, right? To remind me how I got a hold of them, that I know that I got them using jQuery, using the $. I'm gonna prepend them with the $sign in front of them, just to remind me that hey, this is not just any variable; it's a variable that is bound to an element in the DOM. Yes. Also, notice the naming convention. I'm naming the local variable. I'm giving the same exact name as the ID or the element that it's associated with. You see that? so I can get it straight in my head, right? I say that this is mapped to that. Okay, we'll be doing that quite often throughout the entire course, right? That we'll follow a naming convention so that we can get it, keep things straight in our heads. So, for instance, create user here in the client is going to have the same name in the service, and it's going to have the same name on the server. It's going to have the same name in the MongoDB service when we get to that. Okay, so it's a good idea to maintain these naming conventions so that we can see the whole flow of the logic. All right, excellent. So we have the user field. Let's do the same thing for the password. Oops. And for the first name and last name. Can't type today. All right, so we have all 4 fields locally. The other couple of things that we need to bind are these buttons. Okay, so we'll bind the buttons as well. For instance, let's bind first the create button. We'll bind the create button right here, and this will be. I believe it has the same ID. Maybe, I don't know. Let's see. So if we go here and we go the button to create. Let's see. Apparently not. Okay, it's these over here. I don't know why this looks like this. There we go. Okay. All right. So actually, no. They have these classes here, and these are the search, the create, and the update. So to follow my naming convention, we're going to give it the IDs. So this will be let's see. This will be create button. Create button. What else do we need here? We might need also update. Where's update? Do we have? We don't have edit button. So I think a better name. I think this should have been select. The select button. The select button. That's for selecting an individual, and then maybe an update as well. So update button. And I'm going to retrieve it. I don't need it right now, but let's be consistent. Right, and the update button would be the check mark. And the check mark, it's this one right here. So I'll name it ID and the button right here. Okay, and obviously I would fill out all the other ones. All right, awesome. So we got that. Now that we have the create button and the update button, we can bind them to the functions that go along with this. We can say create button dot click. So what the click function does is that it binds an event handler. It literally adds an on-click attribute on the element dynamically. Right? It's as if we would have actually typed it on the element on click. But this does it programmatically. Right? It does it afterwards, right? So on click, like this, again, like all JavaScript functions, typically they have 2 meanings depending on whether you pass an argument or not. Dot click actually clicks the button, right? It invokes a click event on that element. Instead, if you pass it an argument, it binds. It's like a write operation, right? It says bind the click event, and the event handler will be the function that you give it. Yes. To verify that this works, we can do an alert. We can say alert create user. Right. So let's try it out. And if we click on the plus sign, notice that the alert comes up. Right. So we have indeed bound that plus with that function. Everybody okay? So what would we want to do here? What would we want to do? Well, here we would want to maybe read the username, the password, the field, all those kinds of things, right? And add them as a row, right? Add a row, create a brand new row, maybe cloned from the one that is already there, so it looks identical to that row, and then add it, append it to the end of the body. Yes? Okay. So let's do that. Let's see. First of all, we'll need a couple of things, right? We need what? We need this. We need to clone. Let's see where. This is the T body. This is the row that right now is a template to us, right? It's a template. Probably we should hide it, right? Because it's a template. No, it's just showing what it would look like, but it's not actually what we want to display. Actually, notice that it has a WD template here. Probably we can style that and say, display none, so it doesn't show, right? So we might want to clone this. We might want to clone this, and then append new instances to the T body, which has the class T body over here. See that, right? So let's do that. Let's see if we can clone this. We can grab this element here. How can we grab it? Let's see. It has a class. We can grab it. We can grab this. A hidden ID. So let's see. We can grab here the template. So we'll call it. Do we have a name for this? User row template. That looks like a good name. Right, I'm going to grab, what is it called? A webdev template. So dot, because it's a class. Right? Notice that it has several classes. It has also WDV webdev user. So let's copy that. This says, grab me the element that has these two classes, right, together. Right? Okay, we have that. We have that. Okay, so we have that. Very good as a template. And we're also going to need the body, right? Because we're going to have to append to the body. Right, so let's grab that. Do we have a variable for that? Oh, there we go. We have the T body. So let's do that. Let's grab that as well. So let's grab that from, what's it called? T body. So it's a class. There it is. Everybody good? Right? And just to check to see that indeed we can append, right? Let's see if we can append. We can say $T-body dot append. Right? We're going to grab that template. We're going to clone it. And the clone is going to be appended to the body. Let's try that. Indeed it is. We see that we were able to add that clone. Yes? And we could do it several times. We could put this in a loop. So yes, we can append this row as many times as we want. Make sense? Right? Now, remember that the very first one is a template. It shouldn't even be there. Right? So really, the style here that we have a webdev hidden, right, kind of should be a clue that we should hide this very first template. Yes? So why don't we do that? Let's grab that, and somewhere we have a CSS that goes along with this. We have right here, so let's copy that. Let's declare the class and say that the display is none. So that when we render this, display, wait a minute, webdev hidden. Let's not clone it for a second. Let's, where's the, is it grabbing it? Am I applying it here somewhere? Do we have the CSS loaded here? Did we load the CSS? Apparently not. Okay. I'm sorry? Oh, there it is.
Are you doing a hard refresh of your browser? I think your browser's caching the CSS.
Normal hard reload.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it was cached. So anyway, thank you. So if we go here, notice that now if we append, notice that it doesn't show anything. See that? And the reason is that they're actually there. Right? We can look at we can inspect the body, the div, and the table here. And the t-body, notice that the rows are actually there. See that? They have been added to the DOM, but they all have the style of DisplayNone. Right? So that's why they're not showing. So what we're going to do is that we're going to clone this, but after cloning it, we got to make sure to remove that class, right? So that it's no longer hiding. Make sense? All right. So anyway, we know we can do it. Let's just leave that for now. Right? We know we can do it. We have the t-body. We have the row template. So what do we want to do? Let's see. We have this create user. What do we do? We're going to clone the user row template, right? Programmatically, we're going to clone it. .clone. So this is the new user. Okay, that we just cloned it. We need to remove that class, right? The hidden one. So new user dot. I think it's remove class. Okay, and the class is what's it called? Webdev hidden. This is exactly what we're cloning, right? So on that class, we're going to remove the webdev hidden. So we remove that class, and then we're just going to append it, right? Even though we're not adding any new values, we just want to see if we append it by just clicking the button, right? Let's see if we can do that. We can say t-body dot append. Oops. New user. Okay, so let's try that. There's our plus, and there it is. So we can append as many as we want, right? But obviously, those values, we don't want those values. We want probably the values that we would type in the username, right? And the first name and last name and whatnot. So to do that, we need to read all the values, right? Var, the username. We would get it from where? From our username field, right? So this would be username field, retrieve the value. Same thing for the password, same thing for the role and whatnot. Once we have the username, what do we need to do? Well, once I have this clone, I need to programmatically go into webdev-username and replace Ada with the actual username, and replace wdv first name with the actual first name, and so on and so forth. Yes, I need to navigate down to the elements, retrieve them from the one I just cloned, right, and replace the content. Yes, so let's do that. So here's our user. Here's our new user. I just removed the class. I'm also going to say find, meaning starting from new user, navigate down and find me other things in there that are children to me. What do I want to find? Starting from this TR, because this is where I am, right? I'm going to navigate down to something that has a class of webdev username. So find me something that has that class. Okay? And I want to modify its HTML content in there. I want to replace it. Right? So there is an HTML function. I want to replace it with the username. Make sense? Once it has been updated, then I want to append it. Then it gets appended. Right? So let's replace it. And so this would be Alice plus. Notice that Alice is there. Obviously, I haven't done first name, last name, or anything like that. And this might be then Bob, and this might be Charlie. Make sense? Everybody okay? All right. Now, one common way of writing this, notice that you have lots and lots of these dots all over the place, right? So that makes it a little bit hard to read. So one way, also notice that here they're being applied to the same new users. See that? Right. So typically you can chain these together, and then they're too long to read. So more commonly is to put them in separate lines like this, right? And separate each operation under on separate lines, right? So you make it easier to read. So these are chained. And these functions were written in such a way that they support chaining. Right? That's not for free. Right? JavaScript doesn't support that just for free. These functions were written in such a way that they each return the original instance of the object. Right? So they do the operation, and the last thing they do is return the original instance. Right? So that you can chain these one after another. Okay. Right. So yeah. So create user work. One thing that you might want to do is to read the value and then clear it, perhaps, right? So it doesn't keep the previous value there, so you can type something new, right? So if you refresh, notice it's gone. Right? If this were going to a database or server, obviously this would you would get it. So if this is Alice plus, notice that it clears the username so that it's ready for you to type something new. Everybody okay? All right. So the next thing would be perhaps to be able to remove an element that I've just added. So let's take a look at that. So here there was a remove a button somewhere. There it is. We're going to bind it, and we're going to call the click. On click, we're going to call remove or delete user. There it is. Right. So delete user here is going to have to be able to delete the element, but it needs to know how is it going to be able to distinguish one row from another row. It's got like 10 rows. You know, what is it that distinguishes one row versus another row? We're going to have to uniquely identify each row somehow. Okay. So one way that we can do that. Notice that these rows, none of them have an identifier, right? None of them have an ID. Right? So we need to somehow uniquely ID each one of these. Okay. So one way to do that is that as we are creating the new user, we can add a new attribute, an ID attribute. Right? So we can create maybe a timestamp. So var a timestamp, creating a new date instance, and then getting the time, I think. Yeah, getting time, I think, returns the milliseconds since whenever. Now that we have a timestamp, perhaps we can use that as a unique identifier, right? So here, beyond adding removing the class and finding this and that and the other, what we're going to do is also we're going to add an attribute. We can add any attribute we want. We can add a dynamic class. We can add anything, right? One of the attributes we're going to add is the ID attribute. That's a unique identifier, and whose value is going to be timestamp. Attribute also behaves as mentioned earlier, right? If it's one argument, it's a read operation. It says I want to know the ID, right? If it has two arguments, it's a write operation, right? It generates an ID on the element. Okay. So let's try that. Let's try it again. So let's refresh. Let's add a couple of these. And if we inspect these, we'll notice that each one of these rows is still missing the ID. Wait, what? Oh no, there it is. There's a row. Notice the row has a unique identifier. See that? Okay, which is perfect. Okay. So what we can do is that perhaps notice that each one of these has a button, right? It has a remove and an edit. See that? What we want to do is that we want to bind on this remove button. Right? We want to bind on this remove button so that when we click on this, we want to call that remove button over there, right? This remove button here is not really doing anything, right? Really, we wanted to bind it on every remove button, new remove button that we create, that we clone. Right? Each one of these should be different, right? Well, let's see. How can we do this? Well, there's a couple ways of doing it. So we can't bind on this button because it doesn't exist, right? And none of these buttons exist until they're added, right? So we can't bind them on something that doesn't exist just yet. So what we're going to do is, let's see, what is the remove button? Is it bind to anything? No, it's not. It's not bound to anything. So I'm just going to remove that. All right. So here's our create button. We found this username. What else do we need to do? We need to grab the remove button that we just created. So I'm going to find that button. Let's see where I'm up here. I need to find that button. It's down here. It has an ID. Actually, it's not a good idea to have an ID, is it? Why is this a bad idea to have an ID here? Now I remember why I didn't have the ID. I added it, right? Right. Right, it's being copied over and over and over, right? You can't have these elements have the same ID over and over. Right, so yeah, let's remove that. Instead, they are all going to have the same class, which is okay. Right, they can all have the same class. I'm going to navigate down from the TR down to this remove elements. So find me. You're starting from the new user row, right? Find me the that element, and that element is going to do I'm going to bind it to click and delete user. Yes, right? Let's see if this works. Delete user. We're going to do a console log delete user. Let's see. Let's do a console here. And let's create a couple. And let's click on this. There it is. Delete user, delete user, delete user. It's working, right? What we need to do is now find out which element is being removed, right? Which one is being removed. Again, there's a couple of ways of doing it. We can find out. We know the button that's being clicked on. Actually, what we could do is store the ID not in the TR. Well, we can store it on the button on the button right away, right? So that once we have the button, we can ask, "Hey, button, what's your ID?" So now I know exactly which one to remove. Yeah, let's do that. So here's when we created this timestamp. I'm going to add it to the button. The button's going to have the ID. Yes? I'm going to have the button. So now in the delete user, one of the things that gets passed to the functions when part of an event handler is the event object. Right? The event object that was generated when the event was invoked by the browser. Right? And we can print the event. We can say print the event. Let's see what's in there. Let's see. So click on there and let's go to the console. There's the event. It's a really big object. Let's clear that so you can see it again. There it is. And so the event is an event object that is sent over by the browser. It has lots and lots of really cool information. It has if you hover, you'll see the original event element that generated this event. Notice that it has a reference to that. It's an I element, and the ID, that's the ID, you see there? What else is there? It's a also when it was generated. Also has the X and Y position of the mouse when it was generated. It has lots and lots of information about when the event was generated. We're only interested in this right here. The current target. This current target is a reference to the element that was clicked, and I can ask it, hey, what's your ID? What's your ID? Okay. Oh no, I have the button has the ID, but now the TR doesn't have the ID. Okay, no, let me put the ID where it was. Let me put the ID where it was. Yeah, I wanted to remove the parent. I have to. I wanted to start from the parent down instead of from the child up to the parent. But well, okay, no, we could do that. That's fine. We could do that. Sure. All right, so let's grab the elements. We can say event.current. What was it? Current target, was it? Current target. We can so this is the raw HTML element. That's the raw HTML element. The actual I element in the DOM. We're going to convert it into We're going to convert it into a jQuery element. So that we can now use the API, right? I don't want to use the raw JavaScript API. Instead, I want to use the jQuery API. So I wrap it. So now I can use the function such as @attr, right, to retrieve the ID. Although I don't really need the ID, var ID, and we can now just console display the ID. Just to show you that we have that one element. Let's try it out. So if I click on this, it gives me this ID. If I click on another one, notice that I have a completely different ID. Right? So we can retrieve the elements. What our colleague here is suggesting is that since we have this here, just like we can navigate from the parents, right, and navigate down to somewhere down to our children, we can go the other way around, right? We can say .parent. So we're down here, and we say parent, it'll put us in the span. If we say parent again, it'll put us in this TD. If we say parent again, it'll put us in this TR. See that? Right? Or there's a function that can just go up to the parents right away, as long as you give it a selector. Find me the parent whose ID or class matches, right? So navigating with the tree up instead of down. Finding, for instance, webdev templates, webdev user, right? Once you find it, now I have it, and you can do whatever you want with it. For instance, you can remove it. So let's do that. So I don't really need the ID. So I want I have the button here. Here's the button. So I have the button. What do I want to do with the button? I want to find its parents. All right. So we can say var the table row. I'm looking for the table row. So I can say button.parent. And then what was it called? Oh. WebDev templates. I forget if it's parent or parents. Let's do a console log tr. Console. There it is, right? So there's our table row, which has a reference to it. And now that we have a reference to it, we can just blow it away, right? We can say remove. We can say tr.remove. We can just remove the elements, and they're gone. All right? Make sense? Okay.